Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today I want to share with you a story, in particular the story of how I learned English. For as long as I can remember, people has asked me about how I learned English because, for one, I'm Taiwanese. I was born here and I've never left this place. I've never been on a plane, I've never been abroad, I've never been to any cram schools, nor have I ever been to any American school or bilingual schools. Despite all that, my English is much better than most Taiwanese, including those who went to American schools or bilingual schools, or those who have been abroad or related to other English-speaking countries in any way. To start the story, I have to start with my dad. My dad's a professor and he really cares about me and my brother's English education because he knew that English is going to be very important once we grow up. Not only for school, but also when we need to communicate with people from other countries. So he actually let me start learning English around the same time when I started learning Chinese. So I was learning the two languages together. I feel like how early I started learning English really helped me build a strong foundation, because I was learning two languages at the same time without any already existed knowledge of languages. My dad also bought a lot of books, and he always buy those that have CDs, and he let us listen to them wherever we go, whether it's on a field trip or whether it's on our way to the market, because he feels like listening is a big part of how you learn a language. However, he never speaks in English with us, whether it's then or now, because back then he knew that his accent wasn't very correct, that he's afraid that it will affect us, and now it's because I will correct his pronunciation. My dad taught me to listen and my mum taught me how to read. And you know these books, when you started learning the language, and these English books with only like 10 words each page, with the rest of the page a picture. My mum read through these books with me, a word at a time, and I need to read through the entire page myself before we move on to the next one, which is how she built my pronunciation in a way, and also taught me not to take shortcuts in learning English. When I was in preschool, we always bring our toys to school on Fridays to play with other people, and I always brought my Barbies. But one day I woke up and I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna bring my Barbies today because I've brought them every time and I'm getting bored. So I decided that I'm going to bring my Cinderella book. Turned out I brought my Cinderella book and nobody wanted to play with me. So I was wandering around the school holding my book, and my teacher saw me, and then I read the book to her, and she was amazed by how good my English was, I guess, because to be honest, I never really considered my English ability to be magnificent or whatever until probably much later. And that's when people suddenly realize that I'm very good in English, and that's kind of how everything started. When I enrolled in primary school, nothing really happened except that story which I told you in my storytelling video, which I will leave the link down in the description below. Nothing happened until when I was in 3rd grade and my best friend showed up. She just came back from Canada, so obviously her English is really good, I met her in English class, and back then our English class actually doesn't allow us to speak in Chinese. So we started to speak in English all the time, and then we were sorted into the same class in 5th grade. And then we started to speak in English to each other 24/7, every day, every second, and you will see 2 girls in school talking in English to each other whilst everyone else speaks in Chinese. So she really trained my ability to speak in English, and I feel like if I have never met her, I probably wouldn't be able to speak so fluently, to be honest. Apart from speaking to me, she also lent me a lot of English books. I've always loved to read, but before that I usually read Chinese ones until she lent me her English books, and I just fell in love with them. I also have this really weird habit of rereading a sentence until I get it perfect, in my opinion. I feel like that weird habit, that weird persistence of mine, also helped me build my accent. The accent you're hearing right now is actually my self-taught British accent, but I actually have, like, my real accent is actually closer to an American accent. I feel like my best friend, which her name is Carissa, I feel like she really changed and helped me in my English learning life. I started reading English books, and I've always loved to write, so I started writing diaries in English, and I wrote verses, songs, stories, all in English. I also wrote stories in Chinese, but mostly I write them in English. Like, I just fill my daily lives with English. I think in English, I talk to myself in English, whether it's deep thoughts or whether it's, oh, I'm going to take a shower now, like everything. I just fill my days with English, and I feel like doing all these and filling my life with English is a big part of why my English is so good today. I know for a lot of you, grammar is a huge problem, but like for me, I've never learned grammar, but I went back and flipped through my diaries back when I was in primary school, and oh my god, my grammar back then was absolutely horrid. I had no idea what was grammar, probably. But look at me now. My grammar's fine, and I feel like you just have to train yourself in a way. Like, you need to read more. That's what I did, and everything's fine. To be fair, I feel like language is a tool for you to communicate, and as long as the other person can understand you, grammar doesn't really matter. For me, I read a lot of books and I watched a lot of movies and shows, and they built up my English ability. But obviously for other people my age, which is around university or high school, when the majority of the time is supposed to be studying and you don't have all that much time to read books, I would recommend you to watch movies and watch shows, because who doesn't watch movies and shows? You still need to relax every once in a while, and when you do so, I would recommend you to watch them either without subtitles or with English subtitles. I feel like that can really train your hearing, for one, and it can really train your ability to understand faster and maybe even think in English. However, if you really actually do have time, I would still recommend you to read books. Of course, you need to find a book that you're really interested in, but that's not going to be a big problem. Trust me, millions of books in the world, you'll find the one. And I feel like for me, that's the best way to learn the language, because either it's vocabulary wise or either it's grammar wise. I've learned both these from books, and I've never searched the words when I don't understand when I'm reading a book, because I feel like searching them outright is actually not the best way. For me, I would actually guess the meaning of the word through the contents, and then I will memorize it better. I mean, of course, that's for me. Everybody have their way of learning, but that's my recommendation for you guys. Of course, that's how I learned the language. It doesn't mean that it's the best way or it's the right way, but I hope my recommendation helps you, because obviously everybody have different ways that it's more efficient for them to learn. I feel like for the most part, passion is what drives me to learn the language, because I was very passionate about the language and I really like it, and because I have passion for it, I went to find more resource and I read more books, and that's how my English is so good today. And I feel like that's actually the same for everything. As long as you have passion for it, you go and find more resource and you learn more, and one day you will become really, really good at it, as good as I am with English. Another thing I feel like is worth noting is that for me, I don't take English as a curricula in school. I don't take it as a curricula that I need to take tests, that I need to pass, that I need to reach a certain grade to graduate. I take it more as a way of life, because I think in English and I talk to myself in English and I surround my life with English, which is more like how people do in English speaking countries, when I don't have to make the language English, when I can make the language my native language, which is Chinese, but I chose not to. Of course, this is also related to passion, because I am so passionate about this language that I make it a big part of my life. But I feel like in general, you just have to surround yourself with it if you want to learn the language well. So that is my recommendation for you. I hope it helps. If it did, you can recommend it to your friends. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!